fitness and health fans. It's time to get your game on and crush it with Coach Marghella in another episode of Sporting Good Fitness. Join us for the podcast that will coach you from the sidelines to keep you on your game no matter what health or fitness game you play.
Hey, I'm Coach Marghella. I'm Sporting Good Fitness. What are you sporting?
Hey, Coach Marghella, what do you have for us today?
Hey, this is Coach Marghella, and we're back today with another episode of Sporting Good Fitness. And today's guest, I have Dr. Patrick Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy is actually a former Olympic swimmer on the '84 Olympic swim team, and he's also a chiropractor and a wellness expert with over 30 years experience in the field. And I want to welcome you today to the show, and I'm really excited to have you on today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Coach.
So, Pat, is it okay if I call you Pat?
Yes, sir.
Pat, I met you a couple of years ago, and I was doing a chiropractic seminar. I tell you, it was one of the most pleasant and informative experiences that I've ever had at any of the seminars I've gone to, and I've been in practice almost 12 years now. And I appreciate how you come at things with your expertise and your background in sports and how you related that to the ways that you conduct your practice as well. And I appreciate you doing that. And I wanted to kind of go into a little bit of that today because today we're going to be talking a lot about stress, not only for athletes, but also just regular people. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Your experience with stress in your office, what do you see as far as athletes? What is the stress doing to them, and how is it holding them back from reaching their true potential?
Gosh, I could probably talk for 12 hours on that one, but the biggest thing, having practiced for 30 years now with your weekend warriors all the way up to treating some Olympians and world record holders, I'm just seeing that stress, just daily stress overall, is just out of control. I mean, back when I was a kid, 10-year-olds, we didn't have stress. The biggest stress I had was picking out what popsicle I wanted to have, Today, kids they're making them do so much work in school and the testing and the pushing. And, if you can't do a balance beam routine by the age of 6, or breaking records, on a football team by the time you're 8 years old. I mean, there's so much stress that it's crazy. I think there's less enjoyment and more chances for injury. Might sound kind of corny, but the fun has been taken out of playing sports and being part of a team and camaraderie. And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist, but it's now so stressful. So, yeah, I'm just seeing, and I don't think it's going to get any better.
Yeah, that's been my experience too, that, we've seen a lot of that getting worse instead of getting better, even as we get more aware of things. Now, what do you typically see as some of the common injuries that you're seeing because of this chronic stress that people are dealing with?
Because you're a coach, I'm going to say this, that a lot of coaches I'm not going to make friends with is, you have to practice smarter and not necessarily harder and longer. You can push an athlete to the end point because you want to see how far the athlete can go, but then the athlete needs a chance to rest and recover and make sure, getting proper sleep and getting proper nutrition. And, some of these ice baths are fantastic for recovery and, using the technology like that. I think repetitive injuries of just, the old days of, hey, coach, I'm really sore. It's like, all right, get back out there and work through that. Produced a whole lot of people now, they're in their 40s and 50s, have degenerative spines, have, herniated discs, rotator cuffs that are torn, all from repetitive injuries. And so parents today need to be really sharp at making sure that their little athletes are, pushing hard, but also getting some rest and proper nutrition, and don't let an injury fester. Go get it taken care of by a sports practicing doctor who understands sports and get it fixed so your athlete can go back out there and they're not going to be miserable when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, that reminds me, you told me a story of when your coach had pushed you and ended up leading to an injury. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that story?
Well, about six episodes just flashed through my head, but I remember.
It's probably more than one.
Yeah. I'm getting to that age where it's like, I went to school and barefoot and climbed snowbanks and stuff when I was a kid. But some of the things that, because I was a swimmer, people have their stereotypes. Swimming, you're in the pool. But we did a lot of training with in the weight room, and we did a lot of running, a lot of body resistance type things, stretching. And I remember one instance where we were doing stadiums. This was in college, and going up and down the stadium stairs with the football stadium, that was at the University of Florida, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, was like 120 degrees in there. And you're going up and down the stadiums, and the sweat's pouring in your eyes, and you can lose bowel function. I mean, you're really in that bad a shape, and coaches just keep pushing you and pushing you. And one time I got to the top, and to turn back around, and I got dizzy, and I fell. And basically, I think I got dehydrated. I fell, and it was like, "Come on, Kennedy, get up!" And so the teammates are picking me up, and at the bottom, I twisted my ankle, and there was no rest for athletes back then because the coaches were trying to make you tough.
Yeah.
So
what about, there was another one you told me about, something happened to your foot one time, like you broke your foot or something?
Yeah, that was another one. Coach thought he was being funny. And it's kind of hard to explain, on the audio here, but we did what they call baskets, and the basket had a pulley system that went up to the roof, and then you had a tethered line around, the swimmer's waist, and you would swim out pulling these baskets of weights up in the air. And you're swimming, so you're not going to be pulling like 150 pounds. I mean, you put 10, 15 pounds in there, and that's quite a workout to pull against in the pool. And, I got all the way across the end there, and my coach put 100 pounds in the basket as a joke, and it pulled me back so fast to the wall that I was kicking as fast as I could, and when I came into the wall, I kicked the wall and broke my foot. And I said, "Coach, I think something's wrong." And he was like, "Quit being a pansy." And I said, "My foot's killing me," and he made me swim the rest of the day and run that day. And finally, I went to the doctor, and they said, "Yeah, Kennedy's got a busted foot." And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." But, he wouldn't let me get a cast.
Swim with that too, right?
Oh, yeah. And he wouldn't let me get a cast because we had a swim meet in 2 weeks. And so, they taped it up. And one thing I did learn from that, and I think it's a good thing, is that bodies do heal quickly. You don't have to baby it. You do need to rest. But, I was swimming and competing in 2 weeks on a broken foot. And, the first few days was rough, but the bone healed. And, I'm fine. So you can push your athlete, but I wouldn't say, I think that's flat out mean and stupid today.
Yeah, I don't think that would even happen today where they would get that far.
No, I think some attorney would get involved quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've told me before about some of the differences when you were, going through the process of going to college, doing the meets, getting ready for the Olympics and everything. And you even told me that you didn't really have the stereotypical swimmer's body, with the long arms and being 6'4" and everything. So with what you did, what kind of allowed you to make it as far as you did and make the Olympics, where other people that had the more quote unquote swimmer type bodies, didn't make it? What did you see that was the difference that you ended up making it?
Well, to be honest with you, Frank, I think what happened was, they would start the gun and let me go first, and then have No, it was kind of crazy, but I think my coach helped me early on because I'm only 5'10", and you're right, swimmers are usually 6'2", 6'4", even some of the guys I competed against were 6'8", so they had, almost a foot advantage on me. That my coach changed my strokes, that when I would get out of the pool, people would sometimes laugh and say, "Where's the rest of you?" And it is because I looked so long and so tall in the water So I had to maximize what God gave me. And, that's one thing when I go and talk to teams around the country is, don't worry about what you don't have. Just what you do have, maximize whatever you have. So, I might have been one of the shortest swimmers ever, but I didn't go around moping and complaining. It was, this is what I got. So I had to accommodate for that. So, you hear stories of some basketball players that play in the NBA who, are 5'8", and you go, how'd they do that? They maximized what they had.
That's awesome. Speaking of that too, you mentioned you swam in Baltimore, right?
Correct.
Or in the Baltimore area. Now, you told me about someone that also swam there that ended up breaking your records. And you told me a little bit about when you first met him when he was pretty young. Can you tell me a little bit about that for our listeners?
Right. So if anybody is out there and they're familiar with swimming, they know that Michael Phelps, who you're alluding to, swam at North Baltimore Aquatic Club, or NBAC. And he grew up in the Baltimore area, of course, 20-something years after I did. And I was the first Olympian for males on NBAC, and since that was 1984. And every year since then, NBAC has put someone on Olympic team. So it's just an amazing swimming program. It still is to this day. But they would bring me back and help to inspire the younger kids. And I went back one time when Michael was 12. So I gave this talk, and my coach said, hey, I want you to come meet one of these kids. And he pulled Michael out of the pool. And when Michael stood up, he was like 12, and he was already 6'2". And he goes, this kid's going to break all your records. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, I guess he's going to. He was huge already at 12. And I watched him swim. And not only did he break my records, but he crushed them. And, records are made to be broken, but it's kind of cool. Michael Phelps broke my records. And I have one bragging thing is that I was the record holder for the 400 individual medley, and he didn't break that one. So
you're still in the record books for that one. There you go.
Well, somebody else came along and broke it later, but it's not there. But it lasted for almost 30 years. It was pretty cool.
That's amazing. Now, speaking of Michael Phelps, a lot of people know who that is, and we've watched him for many years now in the Olympics. And what do you feel like was his reasoning? You told me a little bit about what he did that was different than some of the other swimmers. Could you go back into a little bit of that?
Well, I think that you're alluding to an interview with Michael one time. And, I had visited with him several times before, and so I've heard the same thing. But, a lot of, sportscasters, they ask him the same question. Michael, what made you so great? What made you different? And he said, look him straight in the eye, and he said, you know what? I didn't miss any workouts. And everybody kind of laughed. Okay, that's cool, yeah, but what else? No, I just didn't miss any workouts. And whatever the coach told me to do, I did it. And, that's kind of a humble statement. He is very gifted, but he also took what God gave him, and he was very disciplined. Most athletes would train 6 days a week and take the 7th day off. For 8 years, he didn't. He trained every day, and he thought, I'm getting so many days, that's 52 days a year that other swimmers weren't, and then you multiply that by 8 years, it's like a whole year of extra training that Phelps had that the other swimmers didn't have. And his coach was very smart that because he was in the pool every day and he was doing something, that he built in some, recovery workouts. He wasn't crushing it every day so that he wouldn't hurt himself. And Michael swam just about injury-free, which is incredible. So smart coaching and an athlete that's willing to work like that, that's why it's history. You're going to get a gifted swimmer or, football player. You're going to get a gifted person once in a while, but somebody who's got drive and persistence and a great attitude and coupled with really good coaching, that's when you see record books. And Mike's a legend. And, so it was pretty cool to watch him unfold like that.
That's a great story. I love hearing that again. And also it just reminds me of just in general what discipline and mindset, where it'll get you, whether you have the prototypical body or not. And you mentioned to me what you did and kind of your mindset and how you kind of ran through your Olympic trials. Can you go a little bit into that, like how you did that and what you visualized and how you went through that to be able to really know that you were going to make it?
There's two main points here, I think, that could be made, and that is, when you get to that level of competing, you're going to endure some stress. And that's why they call it Olympic trials. Trials are not fun. Trials, they test you. When everybody says, oh, how you doing today? Oh, man, I'm going through some trials. They're not happy about it. So I think it's appropriately named Olympic trials because you're going to take all the athletes, best in the country, and you're going to put them on the spot and say, show me your stuff. So, you train for 10 years, twice a day, and give up a lot. And, here it is. It's just this day you perform in this race. And if you don't perform well, in the U.S., they pick 2 athletes, and that's not a whole lot of athletes. So you've got to be on your best game. So your mental rehearsal is probably 95% of the game at that point. And 2 things happened with me. One, I was American record holder in the 400 individual medley, and I was a shoo-in to make the Olympic team in that race. Well, I put so much pressure on myself. I had prepared, I was ready, but all I could think about when I got on the blocks was there's a TV station in my hometown. It's my sister's birthday. They're in my living room filming right now, watching my family react to me making the Olympic team. What if I don't make it? And my mind started to play tricks on me. And I started thinking about what ifs instead of, look, you've trained your whole life. You're ready. Go for it. Stay positive. I got stuck in a negative loop, and I finished 4th, and they only take 2. And I was devastated, just thinking, oh my gosh, it's all over. I'm done. And I moped around for about 2 days, and then I had another race, the 200 butterfly. And I wasn't the favorite, but my teammate was the world record holder in the 200 fly that year. And so I trained with him, and I was a good flyer. But, I knew my teammate was going to win because, he's the world record holder. And I didn't have any pressure. I had trained that race. I was ready. And so halfway through the race, I was keeping up with my teammate, and I said, I might make something here. And then the last 25 meters, I pulled ahead of him because I was just feeling so good. And I touched the wall, looked up, and there I was. I made the Olympic team in a race that I wasn't thinking I was going to. But 2 things. I was prepared for my race, but I was also prepared for this race. And I had mentally rehearsed those races thousands and thousands of times. I mean, every day, twice a day, going up to the blocks in my mind, thinking about what it's going to feel like, doing each length so that the day of competition, it's not new. It's like you just pretty much get in the water and do your thing. Mental rehearsal is so important. And that's, again, you throw in that stress factor, and I got stressed on my race. Stress increases cortisol levels, which makes your muscles tight. That's not good for swimmers because you need to have long muscles. So I got tight, I freaked out, and I didn't do well. And then the other race, I was calm. I didn't have that pressure on me. I just did the thing I rehearsed in my mind so many years, and boom, it happened. So you got to be prepared, but you also have to be able to control your mind.
That's so cool to hear how you did that and just how you were disciplined enough to really get that mindset. Now that you work with athletes, you work with younger kids and high school kids and everything, what has been the thing you've been doing to really help people the most with their mindset and just really getting able to do the grind of working out, or whether it's just on the weekends or whether they're training for something serious?
That's a hard question to answer because every person is different and they have different goals. So in our office, we have a motto where we say we meet people where they are and we help them get to where they want to go. And I think that's really important for any doctor's office is, instead of making us, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain with all the answers, We don't have all the answers. We want to analyze and diagnose the patient, find out what's really wrong, and then find out what is their goal. Do they just want to, get out of bed in the morning and not have pain? Do they want to have a golf swing that they can drive another 15 yards? Do they want to have more stamina when they're playing tennis? They want to have more speed and strength off the line, in football. But, it's their goal. So you find out what they want, and then you put together a realistic plan that will help them achieve their goal. And it has to be their goal, because then when they start to wane or whine or say, oh, it's too much, or I don't want to do it, you say, well, do you still have the same goal? And like, yeah. Well, then if you want this goal, then you have to do this. It's time to suck it up and move forward. But if they change their goal, well, then they change their goal. But most people, I think they really want to have a realistic picture. So I don't try to paint a pretty picture. I try to tell them, okay, if this is your goal, this is what you're going to have to do to achieve your goal. And it involves, discipline, it involves some sacrifice, it involves, pushing yourself and doing things you might not want to do at the moment for the better good of a goal. And then I said, do you still want to do it? And when they say, yes, I do, then the honesty and they're prepared for the ups and downs. I think sometimes as doctors, we paint too rosy of a picture. You've seen it because you're a doctor as well, that people come in and say, well, my doctor told me if I had surgery, I'd be fixed. And you go, not really. You might hopefully be out of pain, but you're not going to be fixed by any means, because now you're going to be altered. And I'm not saying surgery is not necessary sometimes, but if a doctor says, yeah, you have surgery, you'll be fixed, that's not an accurate picture. Most people are very unhappy afterwards because they say, I thought I was going to be fixed, and they can't play their sport anymore or whatever. So I think being honest with a patient is probably key.
That's some great advice. And, working with you over the last couple of years, that's how we've been approaching our patients and really trying to meet them where they're at, like you said, and just see what their goals are and help them make their goals our goals so that they know that we've listened and that we're on the same page with them. One last thing, what's the thing that you really want to get across to everybody in closing here about stress and what we've been talking about today? What would be your last word that you'd like to say to our listeners?
Well, without getting too technical, I think a tidbit to help people, you got to kind of understand this first. We have a conscious brain that makes conscious decisions. It's a very thinking brain. It comes up with solutions. And then you have a subconscious brain that's just programs that are running all the time. That is the part of the brain that tells the heart to beat, for you to sweat, digest food, create new tissue. So that part of the brain you can't control. So when you have stress in your life, and it can be, like we said earlier, it can be from emotional stress, can be financial stress, could be physical stress, you got an illness or an injury, you got digestion stress, whatever stress it is, the brain perceives that and it turns off your conscious brain. So when you're under stress for whatever reason, your conscious brain, which is the problem solver, is not thinking. You turn into just running automatic programs. So for instance, an athlete, say, a baseball player is up at bat and the coach says, get your elbow up, get your elbow up. So the conscious brain is thinking, okay, elbow up, elbow up. But now all of a sudden the player is in the bottom of the ninth and they're tied and the bases are loaded and there's 2 outs already and there's all this stress on. It's like, oh my gosh, I can either win the game or I could lose the game, so you're under stress. And so the stress goes up and then the athlete's not thinking. And then he goes right back into dropping his elbow because he's not thinking. And there, boom, he gets hit, out. The game's over. He's all stressed out. And the coach says, what were you thinking? I told you to keep your elbow up. And the athlete goes, I was trying. He wasn't thinking because of stress. So I think as coaches and parents and doctors, we need to encourage athletes, just encourage patients to get a handle on stress. And the number one way you can do that, aside from coming into a medical office like yours and getting, appropriate care to be able to deal with and adapt to stress, is take deep breaths. And that's free free advice. You got to take as soon as you take a deep breath, you turn back on your conscious brain. So when kids are freaking out or when you're freaking out and somebody says, hey, Frank, just breathe, man, just breathe. It's so true. If you take a few deep breaths and you relax, you all of a sudden you go, well, that person's not making me as mad as I thought. Or I can handle this. Or, you know what, I'm just going to be swimming a race. It's not the end of the world. I'm not going to die. You just take a deep breath and get thinking again instead of just freaking out and just going into this remote control patterns that you're trying to change. And it sounds kind of simple, but it's true. Take deep breaths and turn your conscious brain back on, and you'll see that you can think a lot clearer.
That's something that I know we've talked about before, and I know it's helped me. You really do start seeing more clearly when you do that. I really want to thank you for taking the time out today. I know you got a busy practice, and I know that you got a lot on your plate. And I just want to thank you for working with me the last couple of years and really showing me some things and ways to help our patients that we never realized that we could, and new innovations that really benefit the patient and really have their best interests in mind. And I've learned a lot from you, and I really want to thank you for doing that. And I look forward to you coming to visit as well.
Well, pleasure's all mine. Even coaches need coaches. When I do come, we are bringing some specialized equipment that we're the only ones in the state of Virginia that have this particular equipment. We're going to bring it to Tennessee, your office, and analyze actual stress patterns in people's brains so they can see what their brain is actually doing under stress and label each brainwave. And there's some really simple ways of helping athletic performance, improving digestion, improving sleep, reducing stress effects. It's something that's really high tech, and really nobody else is doing that right now.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm really looking forward to using that and using the technology and really getting a better idea of what our patients are dealing with and giving them even better solutions that they can really overcome some of their stress patterns and some of their sleep problems, like you said, and some of the other health issues they're dealing with, and just finally break that pattern so they can feel like they broke through and made the changes that they were looking for and kind of reach the next level that they were trying to get to. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And actually, I'm looking forward for you just to do that on me as well, so I can see what's going on with me, so I know what I need to work on and the areas that I need to improve.
Well, you might not like what I have to tell you, Coach, but I'll tell you the truth.
Hey, that's why I like you, man. So thanks again for listening today. And if you're interested in learning more about Dr. Kennedy, you can find all the information on the show page at sportinggoodfitness.com/Kennedy. Thanks again for listening to another episode of Sporting Good Fitness. And I look forward to some future episodes with you. We have some exciting guests coming up. And once again, this is Coach Marghella. I'm Sporting Good Fitness. How about you?
Thank you, Coach Marghella, for another thrilling episode.
Sporting Good Fitness is a broadcast wellness production powered by Ideal Health and Wellness Center in Franklin. Executive producer, Frank Sardella. Dr. Marghella appears courtesy of Ideal Health and Wellness Center, copyright 2018, all rights reserved. For more information, visit sportinggoodfitness.com.